Okay, it's 7:01, and I'd like to call the meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Jacobson.
Here.
Mr. Madigan.
Here.
Ms. Marlin.
Here.
Mr. Roberts.
Here.
Mr. Smythe. Mayor Pressing.
Here. The first item is the approval of minutes of the previous meeting, April 4th, 2016.
So move.
I'll second.
Motion by Ammons, seconded by Roberts. Bill?
Yeah, I just had a question about on the fine reduction. There were a couple of amendments offered and defeated, and they aren't described, just as discussion ensued. So I don't know how, I know we kind of keep our minutes to a minimum, but it seems like if there's a motion made and there's a vote taken, we should probably record it.
Right. So do you want to say what it is, or should we look, maybe the clerk could look at the video?
Yeah, I guess I don't remember the seconds. Maybe somebody else does. I made a motion to set the fine to amend the ordinance from $50 to $100. I don't know who seconded it. Mike, I think, seconded it, and that was defeated by a voice vote. And then Diane made a motion to set the fines at $50 for less than 10 grams and $100 for 10 grams to an ounce. And I don't know who. 10 grams or less. Oh, okay, 10 grams or less for $50, and over 10 grams to an ounce or to 30 grams was $100. And Mike seconded that again? Yeah, and that was defeated by a voice vote. So if we could make those two corrections. I'll write it up for you or something, but if that's okay with people.
Yeah, so we just hold off on the minutes until we get the revision? We can do that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, okay. So is that okay with
Another
the
week.
motioner and the second?
It's fine with me.
That's all
Okay.
right here.
All right. Then we will move on. Are there any additions to the agenda? Don't see any. Petitions? Okay, go ahead.
I know we were supposed to have a discussion, whether it's on the traffic stop data or on the paraphernalia piece, and I just think that we get more opportunity to have discussions when we have the full council meetings as opposed to the committee of the whole. So I'd like to move at this point for us to have a discussion on the paraphernalia conversation to get further clarity. But if we don't have time towards the end, then I'm happy to move it to another time. But it just seems to me we have more time to have discussion during our actual full council meetings than we do during the committee of the whole.
We have what the council ranked in their preferences of the order of discussion of the traffic study report. So that is in committee, and we'll talk about it next week. I don't know if they dealt with paraphernalia specifically, but we'll see where it was ranked by the council members.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Petitions and communications, Greer Racklin. And John Gant.
I try not to go anywhere without him, so. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Greer Racklin. I'm the chairman and CEO of Countrywide Broadband and also ITV3 LLC, which is a new company we formed to buy the assets of ITV3 Inc., which is the current operator of the ITV3 network. I just wanted to introduce myself to you. We are just initiating discussions with the city on franchising and other things with the UCTV board on other interesting issues that we have to contend with. But I just wanted to introduce myself to you, and if you had any initial questions, I know the attorney Simons has already circulated something on it, but I'm sure we'll have other opportunities to go over questions and answers at a later time. But I just wanted to give the opportunity now in case you had some questions at this time.
Diane.
And Charlie knows what my question's going to be. Well, I have triple play through ITV3 and gigabit speed internet, and I'm very pleased with the service, except for one thing, and that is we still can't get public access channels through ITV3. So channel 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, and 9 are not available. So that's very important to me and to other people in the community. So what's the status of that negotiation?
We haven't had any negotiations on that particular issue. I hadn't heard of that before. We are simply have done the transaction at this stage, but we are going to have, I'm sure, the opportunity. Levi is here. Levi Dinkler, the current general manager of ITV3, can probably speak better to the current circumstances than I can.
Yes, I can. I can talk about that specifically. We have been going back and forth for a couple of months now. The interconnect for those channels is in one of the nodes and actually has to be coordinated with a member of, I think it's Tracy Smith's staff over at the University of Illinois. And so it's just coordinating the schedules, and literally it's every week it's, hey, are you available, are you available? And I believe that they do have it on the schedule for this coming week. All it is a simple connection so that we have access to your feed, and then we can provide it to our customers.
That's it?
That's it.
How can we ensure that that happens?
I think that I can work maybe with Charlie, and I could probably coordinate with Tracy in order to ensure that we have access. We have a couple of gentlemen we actually have to splice the fiber in, I believe, on our side. So it's only a couple of people that can do it, but there's one person on the university side that we've been dealing with trying to lock in a date.
Okay. I
So
hope you
I'll
make-
work with Charlie as
I
as
hope
well
you
as
connect
Tracy.
with Tracy, and,
Yeah.
and it will make a big difference.
Jim Simon.
Just to clarify for those watching TV, assuming they have the PEG channel, currently the ITV3 Inc., the current operator, has a cable franchise which provides for what Alderperson Marlin is referring to as PEG channels. If the city consents to the assignment of the cable franchise to ITV3 LLC, which Mr. Rackland's company has created, all the obligations and all the rights under that cable franchise agreement would transfer over, including the requirement to provide PEG channels. And Champaign has the exact same setup. In fact, the agreements, other than a few names, are identical.
I do have one more question.
Diane, go ahead.
And the build-out into the neighborhoods was proceeding steadily but slowly due to the requirement of reaching the 50% commitment mark before building. Are you going to follow that same build-out model, or how do you envision bringing access to the neighborhoods? And also, how do you envision avoiding multiple digs along the same right-of-way? For example, on Florida Avenue, I've been in contact with residents who've had their front yards torn up 3 or 4 times in the past year with various companies hooking into UC2B networks. So how can we reduce the disruption in people's yards and also build out to the rest of the community faster?
Sure. As I will tell you that our business plan is to build out the network and bring service customers more aggressively than ITV3 has done to date. We will not be imposing that 50% benchmark. We will market it to the best, areas we think in terms of demand, without regard to socioeconomic circumstances, but the best areas to call in for demand. But we're not going to impose a requirement like that. As to avoiding multiple cuts in the street and yards, it's obviously something everybody wants to avoid. It doesn't bring good repute onto the company either, and so that's something we can coordinate with the Public Works Department, et cetera, I would imagine, to eliminate and coordinate any other work that's going on at the same time. There's lots of opportunities, for example, where if there's a building going on for example, we just did, ITV3 did this in Peoria, where there was street construction going on, and ITV3 put in their conduit at that time, even though it wasn't their plan to do it at that time. They did it at that time to get the conduit into the street so they didn't have to cut it at a later time. And that's the type of thing we'll do.
It just seems like different companies could share the same conduit, so that,
Well, some companies are very protective of their conduit.
I know.
And it can be a valuable asset, but I've been in this business for 35 years and have shared conduit with a number of operators, and so yes, that's something that can be done where it's appropriate.
Mayor, I can help answer that.
Okay, Charlie, then Dennis.
Yeah, just to add to that, the city actually should look at what are known as Dig Once
Yes,
policies.
absolutely.
And Next Century Cities has some example stuff. We have to see what's allowed, if we can do that under state law and so on. But it's something we can ask Public Works to look into in terms of coordination. But Dig Once policies are what other cities have been turning to avoid the kinds of problems that are happening.
particularly in new street construction.
Oh, new street construction, absolutely, yeah.
Dennis?
Yeah, appreciate your coming, Mr. Racklin, and I would like to probably learn a little bit more about your background. You sounded like you have you said 35 years of history in the communication business. Are we going to be able to get a chance to learn more about the companies that you've worked with in the past, the history of your background and expertise, so that we could understand, I guess, the level of the depth of professional, quality that you present to us as a new company? It sounds like you just created this new company, the LLC, to address the purchase of our cable network system here in Urbana. So I'd love to get maybe the company's biography or your background information. I'd like to know the companies you've worked with in the past and what your connections are in the industry.
Yeah, sure. Happy to share that. I have shared that with UC2B. Attorney Simons has that information as well. Happy to make it available directly to you. Just in a snapshot, I'm the former General Counsel and Chief Administrative Officer for Charter Communications, which is the third largest cable TV operator in the country. It's buying Time Warner, or aspires to buy Time Warner. You've probably read about that. Prior to that, I was the General Counsel and Chief Administrative Officer for the largest fiber network in Western Europe, based in London. We were the first and, for many years, the only operator of an international fiber network throughout Western Europe, and actually had an undersea cable that literally went around the world called the FLAG operation. And so I've had many years involved with fiber, many more years involved with cable as well. They're different businesses in various aspects, but share some similarities. But I'd be happy to share my history with you as well as my partners. There's three others that are involved. I come from a large company background, and one comes from a small company background. Our CFO was a 30-year audit partner at Price Waterhouse. And then the fellow who runs operations for us actually built out what is now the AT&T backbone network throughout the United States, 43,000 miles. So we've got a lot of experience building fiber systems and operating fiber systems.
Dan in Highland.
And Dan Kennedy, our COO, was the general manager of the Highland cable system, as well as Fidelity Communications, which is an operator of smaller systems. And he brings that experience in terms of getting things actually done. He got his training in the Army, and so one thing I can rely upon him is he gets it done, and he's my COO.
Yeah, and just so you know, for
Jim
clarification, the Highland network is a gigabit fiber network similar to the UC2B network, and that's right outside St. Louis.
Okay, Jim Simon wants to say something?
3 of the 4 members of the management team's CVs were included in the email attachments that were sent out, I believe, on Friday.
Okay, any other questions? Eric?
So, my experience with ITV3 was not so satisfactory. We put our $100 down right at the beginning, but we're in I represent an area that has mixed apartment buildings and homes, and the apartment buildings attracted commercial fiber, but they counted against the 50%. So we were never going to get ITV3. So I finally was able to arrange for Volo to come out and lay fiber for me. And I haven't gotten my $100 back yet, but that's a small thing.
I'd rather have you as a customer, but
Yeah.
I'll have to give you $100 back.
But the more important thing is that they came down our block through the backyards and basically left, they left no foot, they left almost no footprint behind. They put things back very well. So I don't see why that's, well, I mean, is that not always feasible?
If there's a right-of-way, they're going down the backyard. A lot of properties will have rights-of-way down the backyard for utilities, et cetera, that we might be able to use. That's always preferred rather than cutting across sidewalks and streets and driveways. Sometimes it's not always feasible. If there's no right-of-way there, it's not really feasible to negotiate with each and every landowner, 20 homes down a block sometimes. But whenever that's feasible, that's desirable.
Yeah, that was part of the price for them coming down. I negotiated with my neighbors.
That's good. That's good. That's usually the most effective way to do it.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes.
Okay, Aaron.
So good evening, you all. Appreciate you coming. I didn't have a chance or haven't had a chance to talk to either one of you individually, and so there's an issue that has been brought to my attention several different times in relationship to, I don't know if it was from UCTB to ITV, but of about $200,000 that's out there that was supposed to have been used for buying of computers and doing outreach and stuff into the community. Could you share a little bit with me about whether or not where that is, that whole process?
Yeah, and so I'm John Gann. I'm the chair of the UCTB board. I'm also a professor at University of Illinois. And thanks, Mr. Ammons, for that question. Yeah, one of our very important values that was always established from the very beginning of UCTB was not only, it was around digital inclusion that had 3 legs to it. The first was access. So we built the network so we could achieve that. The second is around digital literacy. How can we help people get over the hurdles that are involved with learning about using computers and making computers and other technology available and so forth. And then the third leg is how do we leverage this to really energize our economy and around innovation and so forth. The Community Benefit Fund was established, and it is a very important piece of UC2B. So we have, as part of our agreement with ITV3, the original ITV3, we have money that's been set aside from ITV3 that's been put into this Community Benefit Fund. So our board has developed a set of strategies that we'd like to see for how we'll distribute this money throughout our communities. And at the time that we learned about this acquisition was also, it was the same time that we were ready to go forward with actually releasing our strategy for how we're going to distribute those monies. So given that we want to complete this deal first, we're still holding the money and our steps to go forward. So we do have a plan, we have a strategy for allocating the money, and the strategy basically will make it available for organizations to apply for to get different grants from this money. So all the money that we've collected so far through the Community Benefit Fund is sitting at the bank. It hasn't been touched at all. It's not, and 100% of the money for the Community Benefit Fund will go back to the community. So there's no administrative fees or anything that are taken out of it. So 100% of the fees will actually go back. So we have a subcommittee that's chaired with one of our UCTB board members who's been talking with stakeholders around our community to help get a vision and idea of what we'd like to see to do in our community. There's been so many different groups and organizations that have been very helpful in trying to identify the needs within our communities and help us think through about how we can really stretch those dollars to really reach as many people as possible throughout our community. So we're very committed to making sure that those monies will be allocated. We just wanted to make sure we finished. All of our attention, frankly, has been focused on this. We thought the spring would actually, we'd have the release of the money by March is what we had thought. But we've been focusing all of our attention on this deal, getting this closed. It's a lot of work, as you all may know. And then once this is set, then we'll be continuing forward with that community benefit fund. At the same time, we continue to work with other organizations. So like Charlie helps us with being a liaison to Next Century Cities, and I'm part of some, we've got a team that are part of other groups. So the other nice thing about the Community Benefit Fund, it's also helping us to go after other grants to match the money that we have. And so we've already secured some additional grants, about another $180,000, that will also be used as well too. So, so we've been leveraging. So that'll be part of it, and we'll be coming back to both cities to let them know about the plans. It'll be very public and so forth. And as we work forward, we're working with the new ITV3 about this. They very much are committed to digital inclusion as well. They actually have some good experiences from their work in St. Louis and other parts of the country that are very helpful for us, that are helpful in this partnership as well too.
So the Community Benefit Fund, which is basically now, if I'm hearing you correctly, has grown from $200,000 to $380,000.
No, it's $50,000 a year for the first 3 years, and then it goes down from there. So we've got, I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head,
About 80,000.
yeah, we have about 80,000 already, since the time of this. And then with the original grant, or with the original agreement, it's supposed to go accumulate to 200,000. So right now we have 80,000 in the bank, and then each year is when the next portion of the money is allocated to us.
Okay. So I know you probably were not expecting to have to answer all of that particular.
Oh, it's fine. I don't mind
thing.
at all. Yeah.
Well, because my understanding is a little bit different, that the $200,000 was already there, and there was an organization and a group of people who already had been sort of, I don't know if promised that or if there was some sort of agreement for that money to be used by this particular organization, and computers had been garnered and everything. So I guess we could maybe get together some other time and finish that discussion. But right now, you're telling me that of the Community Benefit Fund, which was made up of money that was gotten from the community, right? From the taxpayers, is that correct?
No, it's incorrect.
Okay.
Just to clarify a
Right.
couple of points. So the Community Benefit Fund is actually money that ITV3 pays to UC2B. We put it into a bank account, and then the board actually develops a strategy of how to allocate the money.
Okay.
So we've had a lot of opportunity to, where groups have talked with us about it, so we've made no commitments. We've had groups that have come and have presented excellent ideas. We've been learning from those, but we also want to reach out to stakeholders all across our community as well. So we've not rejected a single idea. Actually, we've sought out lots of different ideas and so forth, but we've made no commitments to any one particular organization at all. And so that's also, that's not correct as well. But we have sought input. There actually will be a very public request for information. That's actually what we're going to launch as well too. So that way it's a very even playing field for everybody to provide us input and ideas for how to spend that money. But there have been no promises met. It was not as a lump sum of $200,000. It was $50,000 for the, each year for the first 3 years, and then $25,000 for the last 2 years as well.
And so how many years are we into this project now?
18 months.
Okay.
Yep.
Could you explain who the grantees, who are the grantors for your $180,000?
Who will be the grantors?
Yeah.
Well, we're working out the details, but what we envision is that community anchor institutions, schools, libraries, community serving organizations will be it, churches and so forth will be possible grantors. We're also looking for individuals who've got great ideas on how to serve the public with the monies from the Community Benefit Fund as well too.
Okay, so you don't have
open.
any grants already given?
No, we've not.
Okay.
No.
Bill?
No.
Yeah, I did have a similar question. As far as community anchor institutions go, I heard from one that didn't think she was connected to UC2B, but she gets her service through Comcast. So do some of the community anchor institutions get their service through other organizations besides ITV3, but they're somehow being served by ITV3?
Yeah, correct. So the other important thing about UC2B and important value is that it's an open network, and we really believe in competition within our communities. So, and competition is very good. So that means that our community anchor institutions had the option to continue with their providers, and also they had the option to want to select our service as well too. So we try to serve as many community anchor institutions between Urbana and Champaign. and that we possibly can. And so we've done that. And so we've got some organizations that are still using, that are using Comcast or another provider as well. Or we've got, roughly about 300 or so that are using the service that we provide through UCTV and ITV3 as well. And we've got some organizations that have both. I've been in actually several, I can name 3 churches, for example, that I've visited that actually have both services running as well, too.
Okay.
So some people have both.
I guess she wasn't aware that she had fiber connection. As far as you know, has fiber been connected to all of the community anchor institutions?
All the ones that signed up during the grant period. So there were 2 phases. There was during the proposal time, our team canvassed the community very thoroughly and asked anybody who wanted to sign up, they could sign up. Then secondly, after we got the grant, we continued to canvass to look for others as well too. And then there was a third opportunity that once we got the extension of the grant and there were some changes in our budget that we could add some additional community anchor institutions as well too. They were just as reaching the homes in the grant funded area, reaching the community anchor institutions was also very, very important. We set our network, you may not realize this, our network is very pioneering in a number of different ways. First, it's one of the first fiber to the home networks in the country. It's the fastest in the country as well too, and most people don't realize that. So when we hear about the Google Fibers and so forth, we're a step ahead of them in terms of how advanced and how fast our network is. The second important thing was how we defined our community anchor institutions. The original definition was pretty tight, saying just schools and libraries and so forth, but our community said, look, we've got so many organizations that serve our entire community, and even those folks that are in the grant-funded area. So we expanded the definition as far as we legally could to make sure that we could get every single community anchor institution that was willing to get service from us, so they were part of it as well, too.
Okay.
So we worked really hard to do that.
This one was listed on the website. It's Neighborhood Connections, and she wasn't...
So I know that one well, because my other hat is that I'm also the director for the Center for Digital Inclusion at the University of Illinois. And our team has worked closely with them as well, too. And we want to make sure that they are, get whatever kind of services that they need. Our team has helped them with using computers, with training, helping people come in for service, and so forth. We developed their website and so forth. So students in my team, have worked very closely with them. And we want to do what we can to make sure that they can get their service. They provide such a very vital service to our community, and we want to make sure they can get their service as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know they have dozens probably of computers that need to be connected. So 20,
yeah, they
20
do.
or
And our
30,
team
I think.
set up most of those computers as well, so it's very
Great.
important that we do that.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Diane?
I don't know if you can answer the question, but do you anticipate your pricing for the product that you'll be marketing will be similar to what current customers are paying? Or
Yes, we don't anticipate at this stage any change other than maybe some simplification. The ITV3 today has, because the way it grew, has a great number of separate offers out there. It's hard to kind of find your way through it.
Yeah.
And so we might simplify a little bit, but fundamentally we don't anticipate any dramatic change at all in pricing.
Okay, thank you very much.
I did have one
One
follow-up
more
question.
question? Go
John, so given the digital, you said the second hat that you were wearing for the Director for Digital Inclusion?
Yeah.
That digital inclusion, when you think about that, we're talking about today's technology, needing to understand technology for jobs or employment opportunities and stuff. And I was wondering if you had been approached at all by the Community Coalition or Walk as One, and any of those folks who they're starting a Fresh Start program.
Mhm.
And I was wondering if you had been approached about the chance or opportunity to work with them at all.
No, I learned about the Fresh Start program through just other community connections, and then I saw in the paper and so forth. But no, we haven't had a chance. I've not talked with them as well. But that's the types of those are the types of organizations that we like to work with. To really, the folks who are on the front line, really trying to help people. And that's what they do really well. We do technology well. So we really want to try and do what we can to get the technology in their hand so they can serve the community even better and stronger as well, too. So,
All right, thank you.
yep, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Okay, Bishop King James and Reverend Dr. Evelyn B. Underwood do not wish to speak, but they are still concerned about the Dr. Ellis subdivision sewers. Richard Balsbaugh, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak to the council. I live at 2501 Scoville Circle, which is First Road east of Vine on Scoville. And I lived in Champaign for 13 years. Just recently moved to Urbana in September. So where we're located is to the south of us is Meadowbrook Park. And Meadowbrook Park is a fantastic opportunity for Urbana compared to where I was at in Champaign. I mean, the use of that park is just tremendous. And so my wife and I, we walk there almost daily. One of the problems is the crossing there at Vine and Windsor. Now, I know and I appreciate you putting up the flashing lights, like a crossing area. Maybe I have a question. I don't know what the responsibility is of drivers to stop when that light is being activated. But there's a lot of drivers that do not stop. It is a little bit of a dangerous situation. As the weather's getting better, it's going to be more and more people walking to that park, like myself and others that I do see along that road. And when you finally do get 4 lanes there, which might be a ways down the road, that's even going to be more of a dangerous situation. So my only suggestion and what I would ask, if there's an opportunity to put some police activity there during rush hour time, 4 to 6 o'clock, that seems to be when a lot of people are crossing that highway to get there. And the other thing that might help there as well, that I know you've put up a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit from 35, and I can tell you that is not being abided by on a regular basis. So that's kind of a dangerous situation. Cars are going pretty fast. I know a lot of people are getting off work. They're on their cell phones. They're not looking out for these flashing lights, but if there's an opportunity to maybe station somebody there every once in a while, it might help out a little bit. So again, I appreciate that park. I appreciate the crossing light. I wish there was an actual light there, but I can understand that might disrupt that traffic flow.
Well, first, welcome to Urbana.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to the police department about having a traffic enforcement there. So thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Okay, thank you.
Dale Cinder.
Good evening. I'm an Urbana resident and the current chair of the Champaign-Urbana Cable and Telecommunications Commission. As such, we would very much appreciate being heard on the ITV3 acquisition. And my current expectation is that any input we have would be both short and positive, but I can't guarantee that at the present time. Our next meeting of the commission is this Thursday afternoon, and so I expect if we do not wrap up our consideration at that time, we would have a special meeting to consider so that we could be expeditious in it.
Okay, we could get you the information that's been given to the council members so far. Have you seen that?
I have seen what's been given
Okay.
to Champaign. My suspicion is it's the same stuff. Is
Okay,
that?
very similar. Okay. Yeah, we would welcome your input.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And several of us are on
Yes.
the agenda for the meeting.
Oh, you're going to the
Yes,
meeting?
yeah,
Okay.
John Gant and I will be there.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Also, Mr. Ackland, if you have the time and the inclination, you would be welcome to attend and well.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Elderist Melinda Carr, did you want to speak?
Good evening. My name is Eldris Melinda Carr, and I just had a question. I wasn't at the April 11th meeting, and I know there was a presentation regarding the sewer issue, and I just wanted to find out when the information will be posted, because the presentation referenced work that was done in my residence. So I just wanted to find
Well,
out
it's,
when.
if you look on our website, you can look under the city council, and you can see every council meeting. Just go to the date and check that you want to look at the video.
Okay.
And everything
Because it
that's on
wasn't-
the agenda is listed separately, so you can just click on what you want and watch that.
Mayor,
Charlie?
did the presentation that Public Works, was that also included in the, has that been uploaded? I don't know.
We had a
Okay.
presentation, and it's all recorded, so anybody who wants to watch it can.
Yeah, I think the slides were included in our packet, but if they're not, Public Works can get you the full presentation.
Did you want to say something, Eric?
No,
Well-
no.
Aaron?
Well, I thought what I heard you asking for was maybe the hard copies of what was presented, the actual map or something, not to just watch the video. So if they can provide it from Public Works, then I think that I'm in agreement with Charlie that you could probably get the actual map or whatever it was that was presented from them.
All the information if possible. I definitely want to review it because I wasn't here, so
Okay, we'd be happy to get it to you.
thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone else who would like to address the Urbana City Council? Okay.
And also,
Eric, Dennis.
I've just got two announcements to share with the public. First, I'd like to show you a poster that you'll be seeing in the town. We're working with as a member of and chairman of the Urbana Sister Cities Committee, we're working with the student organization in the Ag Ed Class 480, which chose to do a capstone project with the city's Sister City program. And they are doing a book collection of 1,000 books to build a library in the near area of Zomba, Malawi, which is our sister city in Africa. And so we're excited to participate and share that interest with them. So they've placed booklets, not booklets, but they've placed boxes in the city in various locations and on the campus. And they're seeking to collect 1,000 early reader children's books, used books, to ship to Malawi by June the 1st. And in coordination with that, and to sort of help them on their collection, the Sister City program is sponsoring an appearance of an African storyteller and performance artist known as Mama Edie. And she's going to be performing at the Urbana Free Library at 2 p.m. on Saturday, this coming Saturday, the 23rd of April. This is a free performance. It's going to be upstairs in the Busey Mills room. And if you'd like to help the book collection project for the library in Malawi, please bring a couple of used children's books with you to put into the box. I think that the students at the U of I would greatly appreciate your help. And then I have a second thing to share with the public, and this also really has to do with our Sister City program. We learned this morning that Mayor Anne Gromesh, who is the mayor of Thionville, our sister city in France, passed away on Friday suddenly. And we're not sure about the details of that experience, but we did receive a letter from the mayor's office announcing the fact. The funeral service for Mayor Gromesh will be on Wednesday the 20th. So I have expressed sincere regrets of the Sister Cities program and mentioned to them that we had wonderful interactions with the Mayor Gromesh when our Urbana delegates visited them in November 2014, when we were invited to France to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the liberation of Thionville from Nazi occupation at the end of World War II. We visited them for about 5 days, had a great time. Of course, met the mayor and all the councilors. And in response to our friendship visit and the signing of our charter, we invited them to come to Urbana. And the mayor and 8 other councilors arrived in Urbana in September of last year, and came to the city council chamber, went to Public Works Department, the fire department, the police department. We had them at the library, we had them at programs. We treated them to a American-style Thanksgiving dinner. And throughout all these experiences, we really enjoyed the vitality and the youth of Anne Gromesh, and it was quite a shock to hear that she has passed away. So we're going to be sending our regrets, and we'll be purchasing flowers or some other token to as a memorial to her and her memory in this week. So I just wanted to say that this is one of those things that happen in our sister city friendship partnerships that is always a sad experience. About a year and a half ago, we also had we experienced the loss of the mayor of Zomba, a woman who had just been elected through free party elections, the first in 12 years, and she'd only served for about a year as the mayor of Zomba, and she also had passed away. So I just wanted to share the fact that the Sister City program honors our connections and holds our memories in high regard.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Charlie?
I could read the official announcement from the Thionville France webpage if you like.
Yes, you could do that.
Okay, I'll try to translate it best I can. This is announcing the death of Mayor Madame Anne Gromesh. It is with profound sadness that we announce the death of our mayor of Thionville and president of the Communauté d'Agglomération, that's the committee, the governing committee, Anne Gromesh, this past Friday, the 15th of April, 2016. We would like to express our sincere condolences to her husband, her children, her parents, her brother, her sister, and the rest of her family. I can't quite translate the next part. Nous remercions chacun de respecter le deuil et le remerciement de sa famille. I think that's they respect the privacy and of the family. The flag of the village has been set at half staff. So I think a moment of silence for Mayor Gromesh would probably be appropriate.
Yes, we could do that. Let's have a moment of silence for the mayor of our sister city, Anne Gromesh. Thank you all. I did send a letter to the mayor's office expressing our sorrow at her loss, because she was a very delightful woman, a wonderful hostess when we visited in France, and a wonderful guest when they visited here. Okay.
I have one other announcement.
Aaron?
So just to reiterate once again, the roundtable decriminalization of cannabis, State Representative Carol Ammons is hosting this event with Reverend Alex Sharp, the clergy for a new drug policy, and Dan Lynn, Normal of Illinois. They will discuss the implications and the potential of decriminalization of cannabis in Illinois. This is April 26th. The doors open at 5 p.m. The roundtable discussion begins at 6. It's at the Accord at 51 East Main Street in Champaign. I am trying to work on getting more events in Urbana. Maybe Hickory River will be coming up soon. I don't know. Again, that's April 26th. Doors open at 5 p.m. Roundtable at 6 p.m. 51 East Main Street, downtown Champaign, to discuss the decriminalization of cannabis.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on. Unfinished business, I don't think we have any that we're going to deal with tonight. So reports of standing committees, the Committee of the Whole. Who is doing that, Eric?
Yes. All right. I forgot Eric wasn't here. You want to have it back? Oh, I'm just kidding. All right. So report of standing committees, a resolution number 2016-04-022R, a resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental redevelopment agreement by and between the City of Urbana and the Urbana Park District, Cunningham Avenue Corridor Redevelopment Area. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Motion by Ammons, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Dennis?
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I'd like to get some maybe advice or input from our Community Development Department concerning this. I, of course, do support all kinds of improvements in the Park District. I appreciate their interaction with the city, and I don't have any strong disagreement about the proposed plan, but I do feel a concern about one thing, and that is that given the fact that we have so many potential projects and a lot of unfinished programs in the Cunningham corridor, which includes really the kind of the yet to be enacted completion of most of the Cunningham Avenue beautification plan that was adopted in 2008, in which we've seen very little work achieved in that beautification effort. And I'm saying that I understand that there are barriers, not barriers, but challenges to meet some of the concepts that were created in that plan, and some of them may not be appropriate today, but still there's some certain things that one is concerned about, such as perhaps the upgrading of the street lights along the corridor, the addition of plantings and attractive plantings along the corridor, seats and low barrier walls or decorative railings to hide some of some of the parking areas along the corridor, and others that I felt that these concerns, in my mind, are probably of greater concern to me than certain developments or improvements that might occur in the parks themselves, which are under the governance of our park district, which is also a taxing body in the corporate limits, and has been able to achieve quite a few number of upgrades, including a brand new park division office and garage. So I guess my feeling is that I would like to see in this agreement a way in which the City Council would be able to weigh in on large projects that are being proposed to us before they were before the funds were released, say by the staff and administration office of the city, so that the City Council could maybe weigh in on the appropriateness of using the funds in relation to specific developments. I wouldn't want to see money that might be best used for commercial development on the corridor be taken by park beautification projects, which to me are important but not as important. So those are my concerns. And I don't see a place in the agreement where the City Council actually gets a chance to specifically weigh in on proposals. So I might be wrong, and maybe, Libby, you could answer that answer that comment. But I'm not really not talking about general approvals that might occur at the beginning of our adoption of this ordinance, but I'm talking about specific projects which are going to be requesting TIF fund remunerations.
Libby?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think that the pre-existing agreement with the Park District, and we have been operating on a letter agreement for the last 15 years, which this reflects. I don't think that our understanding with the Park District need interfere with these other projects. We've made efforts on beautification of Cunningham Avenue and trying to implement that plan. We found that there's some elements of the beautification plan that weren't practicable, and so we have in the budget an update to that. We have, however, budgeted and partially completed curb cut closures. We've done lighting improvements, sidewalk improvements along Cunningham, sign removals. These are the things we've been able to do. The public art and the landscape pieces, we have some elements of improvements that are more practical than that plan, and we'd like to pull those together in a plan update. It's actually shown in the budget for the year that we're in now. And I think where you have that ability, where the council has the ability to set these priorities and help with these plans, is during the budgeting process, where we set out what are the projects in each of the TIF districts in our budget that we're working on now. We have cash flows as well, so that we can, larger projects, we can schedule out over a number of years. So I think that there's already that review. It's not a zero sum. TIF 4 is different. It's a little bit different. When you look at the map, you can see it's a lot a bit different. When we set it up back in 2001, it had a lot of park improvement goals right in the plan, and you can see that in the boundaries. The way we reimbursed the Park District was set forth according to the Redevelopment Act procedures, but in an administrative letter agreement. We've been honoring that as legally binding. We'd like to continue to honor that. This is a two-party agreement. I think the amendment that you have in mind is unlikely to be acceptable to the other party because their understanding of the plan and the public's understanding of the plan was to allow for these projects to proceed up to the proportion that the Park District would have invested in that particular TIF. So it is a little different TIF. We're well over halfway there. We're trying to follow best practices, but we also need to follow our commitment, our binding commitment with the Park District, and just have the best practices here. But I totally agree on Cunningham Avenue. It is a bit of a challenge. We're not done there. We've done some great things. We've done lots of other things. TIF 4 has really been successful. There isn't one redevelopment project that we haven't been able to assist that's come forward. Things are beginning to accelerate. We've had more inquiries along Cunningham north of the interstate in particular, and along Airport Road. Some pretty exciting things happening. Of course, a big accomplishment of TIF 4 was the ability to relocate the auto mall to that location, and then that opened up our redevelopment sites at 5 Points. So we've accomplished a lot. The Park District's accomplished a lot in the properties that are in TIF 4, improvements to the parks, community center that's there on Kerr Avenue, other improvements, and I think those were my main responses. I wanted to make sure that we had an agreement that both parties were comfortable with. We have been operating, again, on this existing agreement. Council does have control because you approve the plans that we do. Cunningham Avenue plan was approved by the council. We've updated you regularly. Expenditures are covered in the budget. We've got another one coming up. And some of the day-to-day, you'll remember a few years back, we adjusted our redevelopment incentive programs to lower the amount that was done administratively so that we bring to you the development agreements. I think it's over 25,000 of improvements come to you in a negotiated agreement. So we've been good stewards in controlling these TIF funds, and we've been really good partners with our taxing districts and creating TIFs that work for more than just the city's concerns. We want to work proactively and progressively with the other taxing districts. We've been successful at doing that. And Katie Rowland is here. Tim Bartlett had another engagement and could not be here, but she's here on behalf of the Park District and happy to answer any questions about how they've worked with TIF 4.
Okay, Charlie?
Yeah, thanks, Libby. I think there are two pieces to what I'm thinking. First, the Park District has its own elected board and professional staff, and so they're responsible to the taxpayers via that board. And so if people aren't happy with how they're using how they are, if they aren't happy with how the plans are being laid out, that's the avenue with which the public can address it. And then I think as we develop the central TIF, I think there's more detail being developed, if I'm correct, in how that is going to be laid out and what project's going to be involved and all that. So we'll know up front exactly what's planned, more or less, right?
Different concept, too, in terms of the park projects for that TIF.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Bill Brown?
Yeah, I think the thing that, I don't know if bothers me, the thing I think about when I look at this is that it's not clear to me how we determine what would have been done without the TIF. I mean, it seems to me like the TIF money is supposed to be for extra improvement in the TIF area. And if we're just reimbursing expenses for projects that would have been done otherwise, then that doesn't really accomplish the goal. So I know there's been a lot of work done in Ambucks Park, and the new playground is really great. I've enjoyed the concerts in the park there on Wednesdays, and I think you have another path plan to go around the park, and I think that was part of our trails plan. So I know there's work there that probably is above and beyond what kind of the normal maintenance or normal improvements of a park would be. It's harder for me to, I haven't actually been to I thought it was a maintenance facility. I guess there's a community center and offices there. I haven't been there, so it's harder for me to see that would really be a justified expense in the TIF. But if it does have a community center, that might be different. So I guess my question is, how do you go about kind of assessing which projects? The other part of the question is about how much a year. I think this is about $170,000 in recent years. Does that sound right?
It's closer to 120.
120?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I know that doesn't go real far on capital improvement projects, but how do you go about assessing what would be considered an improvement above and beyond what you'd normally do?
Well, that's a good question. We have a prioritized list of projects that we work off of, and we create a 5-year prioritized projects list that goes into our capital budget from there. And items such as the TIF weigh into the decisions about what projects take priority. So if we have a grant match, for example, or TIF funding, the priority rank of those projects could be higher. We have worked very collaboratively with Libby and Brandon and the Community Development Department on TIF 4 and the new TIF as we're working towards the new TIF. And we've done a lot of work in TIF 4. The planning and operations facility on Kerr, it doesn't have a community center, but there are multi-purpose rooms that we use for meetings, including our own board meetings there. And we also, TIF monies went towards the development of our Hickory Street storage site, and then more recently Ambucks Playground, and we resurfaced the Chief Schumacher basketball court, which is a very high-use basketball court in Chief Schumacher Park. Some of the other projects that we have planned that fall within the TIF 4 boundaries include the trail master plan work on the connectivity trails through Ambucks Park. That's one that's taking high priority right now that we hope to complete. Some other projects aren't as high of priority as we focus our attention towards Crystal Lake Park as the most blighted area in our park district.
Dennis?
So I do appreciate, is it Katie?
Yeah.
That, you know, I appreciate that, you know, you mentioned various improvements that have happened within the Park District, the Kerr Avenue, the Hickory Street improvements. But, you know, I contend that this would be the responsibility of the Park District to maintain and to improve upon or enlarge in the same manner that the school district would be incurring the responsibility to build a new school if necessary or to make a repair on an old school. And I don't see how those facilities, which you just mentioned, do not have community resource availability other than within your own department, contribute to the city welfare in the same way as improvements that are offered to commercial enterprises along Cunningham Avenue, which, you know, is in my ward and has been a concern of mine since it is a major gateway from other communities via the expressway into the heart of our city. And also the fact that the city has achieved, and if these are listed as achievements, curb cuts along Cunningham, and, you know, the replacement of a outdated traffic signal near the expressway as being achievements for the beautification of Cunningham Avenue, I can't really get excited about these beautification projects. I mean, I agree that the plan that was offered to the city was somewhat impractical, but the designers did give us, you know, the layout for the placement of benches, screening walls, and plantings that would beautify the strip, even though it's very a marginal strip. Now, I did see on the upcoming public works plan, we're going to be looking at the installation of a very important sidewalk, in the northern section of Cunningham Avenue, which actually, I've advocated for 8 years. Well, we're going to be able to afford that this year. And why is it a safety thing? Because I see people walking on the grass and in the margin and in the street to get from the center of town up to, what used to, the auto park and Farm and Fleet. So these to me are potentially TIF-funded improvement projects that I think are so very important. And I just feel that the city council needs to have a way to make decisions about sharing and participating in TIF projects where we know that we really are getting an important benefit. And I think the Park District does a great job in doing what it's doing, but it's an autonomous department that the city itself does not control or direct. And the fact that citizens should then go and talk to the Park District, to protect their own TIF resources, I think is a misleading direction. So I'm being the cranky person on City Council, but it's in my ward, and I haven't seen a significant improvement on Cunningham Avenue since I've been on the City Council, and it was one of the first beautification projects that were discussed while I've been here. So I've been here for 11 years, and I haven't seen what I would call a beautification of Cunningham since then. And if anybody else can point out where the beautification has occurred, I might have missed it, but I'd like to know. And so therefore, I'm not saying that I wouldn't support your projects, but I would like to be able to at least have the City Council agree by the consensus of a vote that we're supporting whatever expenditures we have.
Did you want to say something,
If
Brandon?
I could, I just wanted to comment a little more and add to Libby's remarks about the future implementation of the Cunningham Avenue redevelopment plan. And as Libby mentioned, there's a budgeted study in the current fiscal year budget. And in the pre-planning that we've conducted internally to start working towards what that call will be for. Because the goal was to hire some outside expertise, as was done with the original plan, but to ensure that it was going to be an outcome the product, the planned product, was something that we would be able to put into action quickly, which has been alluded to. There were certainly some limitations to our ability to implement the vision that was laid out in the original beautification study. And one of the things that has come to our attention is that the state is planning to repave North Cunningham Avenue in either 2017 or 2018. And so the timing of this study is such that we would hope to seek to influence the outcome of that repaving and potentially achieve something more dramatic in terms of beautification of the roadway itself and some of the adjacent public right-of-way. And I think of the visual difference that occurred with Philo Road as a good example of what can happen when there's coordination, I think, between a road project and a beautification effort.
Are you saying that there are state funds then that would be associated with that road prepavement that could be used for beautification?
I think to the contrary, the repaving itself is what would be funded. I believe the repaving is the resurfacing is what would be funded by the state, but TIF money, we aren't going to be in the position to, influence an outcome like that unless the state has already made the decision it wants to come in and do a project. So there's a potential for a major outcome, but it will be in a couple of years. And our Public Works Director mentioned to me that the work on the walking path and the sidewalks from Perkins up to the interstate, that work started today. And that's also the work that includes the 6 curb cut closures, and that is entirely TIF funded.
As it should be.
Eric Jacobson?
So it seems to me that within the broad outlines of the plan, that the Park District should have autonomy for things that are projects that are really in their domain, and we should have autonomy for projects, for parts of the project that are in our domain. Mr. Cruz has come to us and said that in terms of establishing TIF districts, that we ought to formally consult with the Park District and the school district. And I disagree with him. I think that the economic development is our responsibility, and of course they're affected by it, but we're affected by things that the Park District does also, and the school district does also. But that doesn't mean that the City Council should weigh in on school curriculum or on park design. So I would not favor, I will not favor the proposed amendment to the agreement.
Aaron?
So first of all, I'm still trying to get an actual working definition of what blight really is in a TIF district, because for me, blight is vacant lots and torn down buildings and things like that. I don't know how parks fit into blight conversations. So I'm still very much concerned with TIFs when they're being created, that they're not being manipulated to further the aims of developers and folks who have plenty of money, and they're not reaching the actual people who are, that the spirit of the TIF was created for. So I'm still concerned about that before I get into these other comments about, because I disagree with Alderman Jacobson, because the Park District doesn't come to us and say, hey, we want you to hold off on your taxing dollars for X amount of years and let us use it and invest it for you. We do that. Only the City Council does that. So I do think there's somewhat of a difference in how that analogy was portrayed. But I'm still somewhat concerned about, so I'm not exactly sure how, the Park District fits into blight. I'm not exactly sure about that. Can you help me understand that?
Perhaps Libby would be better to answer this, but I can say, similar to lots that go vacant, et cetera. Park districts and parks take a lot of maintenance, and so do the facilities, and over time, they age and become deteriorated to a point that, you know, we don't have the funds to reinvest in them to improve them. So, you know, in a similar way, they become blighted just as a commercial lot or a residential lot may.
There's definition in the Redevelopment Act for blight in a lesser category called conservation areas. And some of the indicators are crumbling infrastructure, antiquated infrastructure. And I think for Crystal Lake, it's been over 100 years for some of the infrastructure, the roads, the pathways. I think you've even pointed out some of the areas that are concerned to you, kind of eroded areas, areas where there isn't good public access. I think we did have our TIF consultant in town recently to survey the future TIF to look for these types of indicators in the area to make sure that it qualified. But, you know, there's a lot of background information on TIF that we can provide, the definitions, the procedures. We're trying to get for you soon a schedule for the upcoming TIF, and we can certainly have put together some background information on the but-for tests and how the different agencies work together or can work together in a TIF, how you determine if something is a bona fide project, if it qualifies for the TIF reimbursements, the different types of uses of TIF funds. I think that we can do a really good job also explaining. We have many times, you know, the way TIF has benefited in specific neighborhoods. We talked about Cunningham Avenue. There's more work to be done there. And I think last time we talked a lot about TIF 3 and the improvements to King Park and King School and to the streets and sidewalks. And those were all improvements that were substandard. So that's...
So, I mean, I can understand some things about buildings falling down, and I do think that it's somewhat different for me to hear a conversation about how the Park District is working with the city to do a TIF component, because that does require some coordination and some agreement, where my previous understanding was that it was basically we decided to do a TIF and everybody else just had to deal with whatever the consequences were. So let me ask a question. The walkways that we have in the Busey Woods area, like you can walk down over the bridge and take a little walk and then go back out. Mm-hmm. Is there a way to, with this TIF, for instance, would a project like what I'm about to describe be covered under TIF? Could you extend those walkways so that they connect to Kohler Avenue so that people could actually get on the pathway and walk through there? Would that qualify under this TIF, under the TIF?
TIF, Busey Woods and the boardwalk path that you're describing is not part of TIF 4, but in the
No,
past...
but I'm just saying in a TIF is what I'm asking, is that would a TIF pay for something like that?
Yes. And that's actually kind of what I was speaking to in Ambucks Park, that we're not building a boardwalk, but we are working on connectivity paths related to our Trails Master Plan, because there's no sidewalk that goes to the street on the west side of Ambucks Park. And we've actually had a patron ask us, who's in a wheelchair and has to go in the road to get to access the park at that location, who's coming from that direction. And that's not the entire impetus for that project, but it certainly weighed into our decision as to where that path should connect.
I would just add that the TIF plan, the TIF in question, when you're considering expenditures, the TIF plan also has to validate that category of expenditures. And you could easily have a TIF that isn't focused on having park-related outcomes, whereas TIF 4 is focused on that. So, you know, that the plan being the document approved by council at the creation of the TIF.
And
Diane?
I just had one last follow-up. I'm trying to understand Dennis's concern, because part of the concerns that I've heard over and over about TIF is that there's really no way to quantify whether or not it was actually successful or not. And so we're still looking for a way to really be able to measure that. Dennis, in your concern, are you saying that there was an agreement that there would be beautification down Cunningham in connection to the TIF? So there was TIF promises that were not kept, is that what you're saying?
All right, so we did spend money on a plan and hired a firm to give us beautification features along Cunningham in 2008. Actually, they worked on it before that because the plan was finally agreed upon in 2008. So they had worked on it for about a year and a half before that. Their plan was more creative than the city needed, so it wasn't truly an applicable plan for the community, but there were features in it that made complete sense. And these were like the smaller features, like benches, screening areas to beautify so we don't see the parked cars in so many, lots of the businesses. We could do very little beautification and tree planting because of the lighting and because there's a very, very narrow parkway or a lack of parkway along most of Cunningham Avenue. But one of the things that could have been done is replacement of the streetlights over a period of time with more attractive lights and other things which have been done in the downtown area, certainly. So incremental improvements would have been a great accomplishment over the last several years, but we've seen none except for curb cut closures. So I'm just saying that and I don't even believe that we have to hire a brand new agent to come up with a brand new plan, because we have the common sense from constructing and making improvements in the downtown and other streets, including Broadway. We have beautification plans that could be adapted to Cunningham without further design study. In other words, what we know already can be applied to any street in the community, should we wish to do so. So I think that, the whole idea of like going out and hiring another agency to come up with a brand new plan is counterproductive and not a good use of our money. I would rather see some of the features that we've already employed just applied along the street for beautification. That's one thing.
Diane.
I have a comment and then a question. First of all, I think if there was ever a plan that the city should have gotten a refund on, it was the Cunningham redevelopment plan. And I remember it very well.
And I don't disagree with you.
Okay, let's just have one person at a time, please.
And I remember it very well because it came out exactly the same time as when I was going door to door when I first ran for election. And I got an earful at every door I went to because of that plan, which included, of course, those stainless steel prairie grass waving over the interstate, which was completely illegal. And it was full of all sort of other ideas that were completely impractical. So I think we're actually lucky that we haven't implemented or been able to implement most of the features of that plan, and the improvements that the Park District has made over the years in that area have been of a far higher quality, and I think have contributed to the overall improvement of the appearance in that corridor far better than anything in that thing would have. So it's, I'd say scrap that one and yeah, let's start over. But the other thing, if you look at on Exhibit D, it shows, of our packet, it shows the projected TIP 4 Park District payments that will occur over the next 9 years, and it averages about $138,000 a year for 9 years. So it's a substantial amount of money, but not a huge amount. The question I have is, how does this $138,000 a year average compare to the overall amount of expected funds that available to be generated from TIP 4? And I should have sent this question ahead of time. I apologize. But I'm just trying to get perspective here.
Well, the metric that comes to mind is that in addition to what's budgeted already, and so I apologize, I can't recall what the annual revenue expected for the fund is, but I do know that, you know, there's going to be a major expenditure from TIF 4 in the near future. I think it's around $2 million for Airport Road West, so there'll be a major public infrastructure investment. After that, and through the end of the life of the TIF, we expect the TIF, based on current projections, so that's not taking into consideration any projects that might happen in the near future, we expect that to generate about $2 million more that at this time hasn't been pledged to a private, you know, investment or public improvement. So just to give you a sense that we expect that this agreement isn't taking away from anything that we would plan in the future. To the contrary, we expect that in the future we will be able to allocate another $2 million for additional projects.
Okay. All right, thank you. And I intend to support the agreement.
We have a motion on the floor. Ammons, seconded by Smythe. There's no further discussion.
Yes, there is. I'd like
Okay,
to
go
make
ahead.
an amendment.
Okay, Dennis?
All right, so, I mean, we've just discussed this, but, okay, so my interest is that, I'm not saying that we don't enter an agreement with the Park District, but that I'm just asking for a new line to be added to our agreement. I think it supports this, but I think it also supports the needs of the community. And it is under Section 2.1, which are representatives and warranties of the city, item F, council oversight, that studies, projects, and specific development or redevelopment plans resulting in reimbursements to the Park District with TIF-generated funds shall be reviewed and approved by the City Council of Urbana. That's what I'm asking, that the City Council get a chance to to possibly support, but also to review the plans that come before the city, as recommendations or requests by the Park District.
Is there a second? Okay, that motion.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Bill Brown. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
Can we have some clarity?
Is there going to be some discussion on that?
Well, I thought we had discussion for
Well,
about an
some.
hour, but I could be wrong.
Some, but not all.
Okay, go ahead.
So I guess what I would say is, well, I understand where Dennis is coming from. I don't support this. I think agreements were made when the TIF was formed between taxing bodies, and I think those agreements should be honored. And I think that this this gets in the way of that. So while I do, to a degree, appreciate the sentiment, I think that agreements should be honored. My interest was piqued by a couple of the comments that were made. One was about improvements to Ambucks Park, and I know this doesn't speak to the amendment, so I'd be glad to speak to that after we dispose of this one way or the other.
Okay.
But I would like to have an opportunity to ask a couple of additional questions.
Anyone else on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, the amendment is defeated. Now we are back to the original motion.
Well, thank you for the
Mr.
conversation, at least.
Thank you. Mr. Madigan.
Okay, so my first question was regarding Ambucks Park. You had talked about the improvements that had gone on there. Just how much of the money we're talking about here went toward improving Ambucks Park?
Well, first of all, before I answer that question, I didn't get a chance to introduce myself, and I apologize I didn't do that on the first question, but I'm Katie Rowland. I'm the business manager of the Urbana Park District, and I have a master's degree from the University of Illinois, born and raised in Urbana on Illinois Street in the Woona neighborhood, so my parents were the Brumlevies, so you may have heard that name before, but my married name's Roland. But so moving on, Ambucks Park, the playground, that project has not been reimbursed yet through the TIF, but that's what we plan to ask for reimbursement for on the next bill. So that playground project, off the top of my head, you're really pulling it out there. At least one full reimbursement, if not more.
Okay, yeah, and my curiosity stems from the fact that I believe that a lot of those funds were raised privately by the local Ambucks chapter. A lot.
I'm happy to pull the figures
Okay.
on the cost of that playground and the revenue sources that went into supporting it and provide that to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I just know that
Sure.
that's one of the parks that is heavily subsidized by private donations. So I was just kind of curious about what the level of funding was for that. And my only other comment would be, while these are two taxing bodies that have made agreements over time, such as this, with regard to TIFs, I think it also raises in my mind whether there should be two taxing bodies discussing this type of thing. I think this is an instance where this taxing body could easily be subsumed by the city and run just as well and save the taxpayers' dollars.
Okay, we'll have a roll call on the motion. Resolution number 2016-04-022R. Beg your pardon? I think we are.
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Pass.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries. Mr. Ammons, do you have another resolution for us?
Resolution number 2016-04-023R, a resolution to amend the Urbana City Council Rules of Procedure rule to set time for meeting adjournment from 11 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. And on behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
I knew that it was going to be seconded by Smythe for some reason.
If
Okay,
there are any
there's a
questions?
Yes, there's a motion by Ammons, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Yes, Diane?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Currently, our council rules provides for up to 2 hours of public comment at each council meeting. Now, we usually don't meet that limit, but we have had that on the past. So when the time was originally 10:30, was public comment also still set at 2 hours, or was that increased as well? I just am concerned if we have 2 hours of public comment, that would leave, not much time for actual council
we
business.
basically just have to extend our meeting or continue it to another time. I mean, we can always continue meetings.
So you're not proposing
I'm
changing
not,
the
I-
2
you know,
hours?
no, I think if we have a 2-hour public input, we're going to extend the time to get the business done that we need to. Those are extraordinary situations. We've extended the time beyond 4 hours when we've needed to.
Okay.
The idea was that our original time was 3.5 hours, and that was set in 1979, 1980 in the council rules then. So I'm not sure what the limits were on public input back then. Sorry.
Okay.
Anyone else? Bill?
I guess just for full disclosure, I think when this was first proposed, I read a tweet on the News Gazette website that said that the News Gazette reporter was very happy that we would be ending sooner so he could meet his deadline better. So,
Eric?
Yes, I've heard this from the media also, that they wish we would be more expeditious in conduct of our business so we could be on the 10 o'clock news. And I always reply that we're very deliberative and that we always obey the Open Meetings Act and discuss everything in public.
Okay. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts? Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries. Reports of special committees? I don't think we have any. Reports of officers, we have a discussion of the Open Meetings Act. Mr. Simon, our attorney.
I'll be brief. I'm not sure what more I could provide you rather than having you, if you have questions. The bottom line with the Open Meetings Act is if there are 3 or more council members, including the mayor, who participate in a discussion regarding city business, and that discussion is considered, excuse me, an interactive discussion, a contemporaneous interactive communication is the phrase that's in the Act, then it's governed by the Open Meetings Act. If any one of those three elements is missing, number of participants, subject matter, i.e. city business, or the lack of contemporaneous interactive communication, then the Open Meetings Act requirement of a public meeting is not met, and the discussions can proceed. The key, unfortunately, is this phrase, contemporaneous interactive communication, which is not defined in the Act. The PAC officer of the Attorney General's office has not provided any bright line tests. Communities all over the state and frankly all over the country periodically have to deal with this. And obviously if somebody is concerned, they are going to complain to the PAC officer. We will hear about it and then we will defend it.
Eric.
So the reason I asked for this discussion is because there were communications from you that confused me. And maybe we can clarify that. Now, you sent a communication to us after we received an email from Mr. Cruz about TIF districts. And you labeled this privileged and confidential attorney-client privilege. Now, as I understand it, but you can clarify this, attorney-client privilege binds the attorney, but not the client. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
The client can always waive the attorney-client privilege.
Okay, so I'm not violating any either ethical or actual law in revealing the content of your communication to us.
Yes, you are, because you alone are not the city council. When I had provided advice under attorney-client privilege, I am providing advice either to the mayor as the, in essence, CEO, or the city council. No single member of the city council represents or acts on behalf of the city council.
So you're saying that because you sent it to every member of the city council, I may not disclose the contents?
Of my memo, if it's marked attorney-client privilege, because it goes to the entire city council. It's legal advice to the city council, not to Alderperson Jacobson alone. So it would take a vote, majority of a quorum, to waive the privilege. It is, it is not yours or any single, or for that matter, two council members' privilege or authority to waive that privilege.
If I could ask a follow-up.
Charlie.
Yeah, I'm a little confused now. So does that mean that Eric couldn't pass that on to a third party? Or it's not governed by Open Meetings Act?
The Open Meetings Act, I believe, if I recall, has an exception for attorney-client privilege.
Right. Okay. So it's basically communication from you to us, providing advice, legal advice, whatever, and it should not be disclosed to.
Unless
we waive it as a
majority
group.
of a quorum wants to have it disclosed.
Well, you did in the, okay, so I'm going to, I did not believe I was behaving unethically, but I will tell you that since it gave me some input with respect to the Open Meetings Act that I found very confusing, I consulted with the former legislator who lives in my house, who was a co-sponsor of the Open Meetings Act, and asked her if what you were saying conformed with her understanding of the law and of the intent of the law. So if that was inappropriate, so be it.
It's it's one of those esoteric, as far as legal counsel, it's one of those esoteric areas that very rarely arises. I am absolutely confident there was no intent to deceive or get around, so I wouldn't even worry about considering whether it was ethical or not. You did what you chose to do. You thought at the time it was right. It's not an Open Meeting Act question. My legal advice is not an Open Meetings Act question. It does fall within the exemption. It's a matter of attorney-client privilege, which is separate from the Open Meetings Act.
May I ask for concurrence to discuss the contents of this note that came to us, or would people prefer that we not?
You want to make a motion?
I move. Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't we table this until people have had a chance to look at it? It was the it was a chain of it was the communication of March 24th. Why don't you remind us? I will.
I'm not sure what you want to disclose.
I want to disclose the advice you gave to us.
That you wanted to disclose to Mr. Cruz? Or are you talking about this most recent memo?
The memo you sent us on March 24th cited the Open Meetings Act in a manner that I found confusing. And I would like to have a clarification in the context of what you sent to us.
We can discuss it when you're ready.
Okay, so so now I may, for information purposes, send a reference to this to the rest of the council electronically.
I didn't hear the last part.
I may, for information purposes, send a reference to this so that people can find it in their email to the rest of the council. May I do that?
You can send an email for information purposes to all the members of the council.
Okay, okay.
I'd appreciate it if you would include me on that, too.
Absolutely, yes, everybody sitting around up here.
Okay. Dennis?
So, Jim, to just clarify what you just advised Eric, that a city council person can send materials for informational reasons to other members of the city council? How does that work out?
Yes, with qualification. If you wish to send whatever information to another council member, it is strongly encouraged that you include at the top of your email, do not discuss among yourselves, do not reply all. Pure information dissemination, i.e. one way to council members with nothing coming back that involves 3 council members or more, or the council members you send the information to discussing it, then that's not interactive. That's just a one-way communication.
Gotcha. So that's acceptable
Yes.
with those caveats.
For example, let's say you happen to oppose a historic preservation item coming before the council, and you want to share a piece of information that you've obtained. If you send that one way and ask that nobody respond by all, or that there's no discussion and that you don't engage in any discussion with 3 or more council members, that's permitted. That's just information exchange.
So if I had a brochure or an article in a newspaper and I wanted to share that as background to an upcoming discussion that would be on the agenda, and it was informational, that would be accepted as a legitimate
Long as it's
communication.
one way, and it's not discussed among the recipients or you and the recipients. I mean, other than involving a majority of a quorum, i.e. 3 or more council members.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. I have an appointment to the Property Maintenance Code Board of Appeals, Gary Burgett, who is an architect, and this is for a term to expire June 30th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Smythe, seconded by Ammons. And who has a comment?
So, yeah, I actually have at least a disclosure, and possibly would need to recuse myself. I'm not sure. I'm going to ask advice. Gary Burgett was the architect for 2 of my businesses. Extremely capable, did a great job, and this has been well in the past. But I do have had a relationship with him in a professional capacity as the architect of the design of 2 of our restaurants. But I don't. It's been well in the past, so I don't know if I need to recuse myself.
I don't think
or
this
just
is a
disclose
paid.
that.
This isn't a paid position, so I don't think there's any conflict.
There's no legal requirement. That's just a matter of how you wish to treat it.
Okay.
I don't
well,
see a
then
legal.
Consider that my endorsement.
Okay, there's a motion by Smythe, seconded by Ammons. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we agreed on something. Thank you all. And there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.